Good evening, I'm Cheryl Mercedes. Thank you so much for joining us for Women Breaking Barriers. I'm joined by 3 local women who have broken barriers in their own fields and continue to inspire others. They're joining us tonight. First, to my right, is Frances Poppy Northcutt, the first female engineer to work in NASA's mission control. Anise Parker, the first openly LGBTQ plus mayor of a major U.S. city. And Raquel Bujorn, first female to break barriers for Latinos and women in the construction industry. Ladies, thank you so much. I am so inspired and I feel so honored to have all 3 of you here with me tonight. Thank you for taking the time and for inspiring, hopefully, the next generation of women tonight who are watching. Let's start off first with Poppy. I've got to ask you, how did you get in NASA's mission control?
It was partly luck, being in the right place at the right time, partly hard work, and partly not following the rules.
Tell me about that.
Well, I started out, I worked for a contractor. I didn't work for NASA itself. And I started out as what's called a computress because there were huge barriers to women being members of the technical staff, being engineers and so forth. And as a computress, I was subject to the wage and hour laws of the time. And those were prevalent all over the United States. In Texas, the rule was they would say that you weren't supposed to work more than 9 hours a day, 54 hours a week, okay? Men were not subject to those rules, okay? So, it was considered protective legislation. I think that what it did was protect women out of promotion opportunities and earning a lot of overtime, because I was in a field where, you would have to work a lot of overtime, but women would leave at 9 o'clock. I would not leave. I didn't get paid for the extra hours, but I wouldn't leave.
Why did you stick around?
Because I wanted to be a member of the team, and I knew you couldn't be a member of the team if you didn't act like a member of the team. If you left and were treated differently, behaved differently, you would never be a member of the team.
What did you do to launch the fight for women to get equality in pay there?
Well, I got promoted, okay, and broke a barrier and showed that women could become members of the technical staff. But overall, I mean, that barrier was really broken by the passage of the Texas Equal Legal Rights Amendment to our state constitution. Now, I worked on that. And, we were very fortunate. We carried Harris County by 8-1. Can you believe that, ladies? And we carried the state by 4-1. I don't think we could get through the legislature today. What do you think?
That's
You're
amazing.
probably right.
We're going to come back to you, Poppy. Speaking of politics, let's go to Anise Parker. Wow. Okay. First of all, not just the first openly LGBTQ mayor of a major U.S. city, but one of 2 women elected to the highest office in the city of Houston. What made you decide to run for that office to begin with as a woman?
I didn't enter politics to run for mayor. I entered politics to solve problems. I was a civic club president. I was a United Way volunteer. I was constantly in community working on things. So I ran for city council in order to solve neighborhood problems. From council, term limits hit me, and I needed to figure out, did I wanted to go back? I spent 20 years working in the oil industry before I was ever elected to office. Did I want to return to industry or run to continue to serve? Ran for city controller. Served 3 terms there. 3 terms council, 3 terms controller, term limits hit again. By that point, I actually didn't think I could return to the oil industry because I was in a highly technical field there. And I wanted to be able to do the work. You could have the title. I'll tell you now, you probably wouldn't have had to pay me to be mayor. I just wanted to do the work. And 20 years in the oil industry, 18 years in public service. Every day, even the worst day as mayor, was better than the best day in industry, because I was making rich people richer in industry, but I was actually, in my view, shaping the future of Houston as mayor. There's nothing like it.
We have 2 ladies so far who just wanted to do the work. That's it, to get there and just do the work. Raquel, how does a woman like yourself become a CEO and owner of a construction industry, starting out a young age as a mariachi performer and singer, and then you're kicking up dirt in a hard hat? How does that even happen?
It was just out of a need. My husband needed a job and he knew a little bit about construction. So then I said, the great thing about the state of Texas is you can start a company in 24 hours. We registered it, and then I just started knocking door to doors. He ended up going into the oil industry, and I ended up falling in love with construction because it's a people business. And it was about building community and helping the community and the people that it serves. And you get exposure to everyone from every different kind of economic and educational background, from people that don't have any high school diploma to doctorate. And so you get to really work hands-on. I also loved operating machinery and learning how to finish concrete, and I didn't really understand that women were actually more challenged 16 years ago when we started. And I recognized that actually there wasn't any women when I started in 2009 in the construction industry. And so now I advocate for us in that industry because it's a great business and there's a lot of success in it. And it's a very privileged opportunity if you just put in the work. And that's what it is about. It's just putting in the work.
Just putting in the work. I'm hearing a theme here, ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Poppy, would you say that the most significant accomplishment that you had working at NASA was your fight for pay?
No, I think the most significant accomplishment really was the passage of the Texas Equal Legal Rights Amendment to the state constitution, because, I mean, that deals with a lot more. That deals with pay is just one thing, and we're still, I mean, we're having equal pay day, and we're still not 100%. But it changed custody issues for, problems for, family courts. It affected property rights for women. It affected a whole panoply of things, and it's there in the Constitution of the state of Texas.
What would you say was your most significant accomplishment then?
Well, I think that was really equal rights,
that.
and I still wish, and I'm fighting for equal rights to be in the federal Constitution. We still don't have a guarantee of equal rights in that.
How are you doing that today?
Well,
tell us where you are today.
I mean, at this point, we're a long way away. Okay. I mean, it's really sort of gone backwards because the political environment is not supportive at this time.
So what are you doing today to continue to beat those challenges and break barriers?
I'm a volunteer deputy voter registrar. I register voters. I think that women have to be civically engaged. I think everybody should be civically engaged, but I think young women in particular need to become civically engaged. So I register voters. I'm also an election judge. I run a large polling place in Houston, usually on election day. And, I'm lobbying my legislators and, just continue to do that kind of work.
Would you say your experience at NASA influenced what you're doing today?
Well, my experience being discriminated against influenced what I'm doing today. Because I saw women not getting opportunities, women not getting paid fair pay. And so I took it personally, and I just because I managed to overcome some barriers, I think that I have a responsibility to help other people, not to lift the ladder, but to try to help other people up the ladder.
Anise, what lit your path? What blazed your trail to that high political office in Houston?
I think my family's still amazed that I ever ran for office in the first place. And for everybody that is shy or introverted or has any kind of social anxiety, I'm with you. I'm there. You can still be a successful politician. I get a lot of attention, being the first LGBT mayor of a top 10 U.S. city, but I was only the 10th woman to ever lead a top 10 U.S. city. And of those, the first 10 of us, 5 of us were Texas mayors. And you think New York City has never had a woman mayor. LA just had its first woman mayor in Karen Bass. And yet, the one thing is that Texas has some big cities, but there has been a willingness, if you get in, you're willing to do the work. And I will freely say that I outworked everybody I ever ran against. And worked harder and I worked smarter. And if you can take the field and play with everybody else, I think Texas will give you a chance, and that's been shown with women in leadership, certainly at the city level. Kathy Whitmire, the first woman mayor of Houston, way ahead of her time in terms of big cities across the country. But there was a time when she was mayor that every big city in Texas had a woman mayor. And that still astounds people in the Northeast and in California, where these supposed liberal places have not allowed that to happen. But it's a little bit of the rules don't change, the game doesn't change. You have to master the rules and play the game better than anybody else.
Raquel, what kind of challenges did you face in such a male-dominated industry, such as construction?
Well, I think part of breaking barriers is doing something that's never been done before. So I don't think it's the one is the sharing of the porta potty was also very difficult. I will advocate for my own every single time out in the field. Also, being a new mother, breastfeeding out in the field was a really big challenge. Figuring out a place for mothers to be able to have that time to just pump milk. I mean, this is a part of life and a cycle of life, and there was no system in place for how to deal with that or how to manage that because it's just still so new. So I think I feel like being a woman is a superpower, and it's actually still a superpower in my industry because unfortunately there isn't as many women that are owners and operators of construction companies yet. But I do believe that if you just keep showing up and doing the work and proving that technically I say, if there's not a chair at the table, then we will just build one because we're builders. And if there's not a table, then we'll make one. And so I feel like, it's still a little bit of a challenge because it's not normalized. But I don't let that be something that, is as big of a deal because I wanted to be treated equal. And so I've earned my right to be there because of the experience and the projects that we have executed and performed. And I think the fact that I'm a woman is a huge plus. And I think that, I encourage women, get in construction. It's an awesome feeling. It's not just swinging the hammer. There's so much more to it than just that.
When you first started showing up for projects, bidding, and there were other companies where males were in charge, what kind of a reaction did you get?
Everybody thought I was the secretary or somebody's assistant, and I was actually asked to get coffee. And true story, one of the largest projects that we were awarded, it was a $50 million, we built a school and a parking garage. And I showed up and I was the only woman at the table. And when we went around, everybody got to do their introduction and I just happened to go last based off of how they started. And somebody actually had the audacity to ask me, so what is it that you actually do? And this was only 6 years ago.
Wow.
And so I think it's just changing the mindset that has been there for so long to... My response to that was really funny, by the way. I said, oh, I just look very beautiful and collect a check, on top of, building this project in 8 months and finding the right team to do that. But it is a great business. And the guys actually, I think when you show that you care, and I feel like women also tend to be more attentive and detail oriented, and we're willing to listen a little bit more sometimes. I think that's really helpful in this industry because it's high pressure, it's high stress. There's always a budget, there's always a timeline, and I believe that we do it really well.
Well, it appears word got out there quickly because you've built a huge company and got a lot of bids, some city bids here in Houston as well. So
thank you.
Congratulations on your success. Poppy, turning to you, you've been fighting for women's rights. What would you tell ladies today who are really focused, though, on going into engineering, really want to pursue a STEM job in that field? Would you encourage them to go into that, looking back into the environment that you were in?
Well, certainly I would encourage them to go into it. But they do need to be aware that there's still a lot of barriers. There's still attitudes, like Raquel mentioned, assuming that you're a secretary or assuming that you're something else. So, you have to have a bit of a thick skin. You have to be a risk taker, I think, to a certain extent, to go into not just that field, but any field where women are not traditionally viewed as belonging there. And you have to have a lot of determination. But certainly, women are making breakthroughs. We've greatly increased our representation in engineering and so forth, and the sciences. But be prepared for some barriers. It's not going to be easy.
How do you knock those walls down?
You just keep hitting them.
And Raquel's got that equipment for that.
Exactly. But
I feel like all of you do.
But whether you've got equipment or not, you just keep hitting them.
Yeah.
Keep coming back. You can't have fear of failure.
Got to take those risks.
Got to take the risk. Get up again. Go again.
Anissa, I've got to ask, your role as mayor, having that office, did that impact, or how did it impact your role, your communication and involvement in the LGBTQ plus community with those organizations?
That's actually an interesting question, because when I was starting as a council member, when I was first elected, I was very clear that I was no longer a spokesperson for the community. I had a job, and it's a little bit different as a council member and then as controller, but as mayor, every mayor is the public spokesperson for their city. You are, in a way, the embodiment of your city. And it's like, as a lawyer, you only have one client. My client was the city. As a doctor, you only have one patient at a time. My patient was the city. So everything was the city first. And I had a lot of attention. Lesbian mayor of Houston, and it was the combination, I think, lesbian in Houston that shocked most people. But by the time I was elected mayor, Houstonians had already elected me 6 times citywide to other things. So Houstonians knew who I was and knew what they were getting and who they were getting. It was more the outside world, and it gave me an amazing opportunity to take all of this attention that was suddenly focused on me and shine it on Houston. And we suddenly started popping up on best of this list and best of that list. Houston became cool all of a sudden. I have never in my life considered myself cool. Houston became cool because I was elected, and that was...
You made Houston cool.
I made Houston cool. That was an amazing
you all
opportunity.
made Houston cool. Let's be honest here.
But Poppy said something that I want to add to, and that is that you can't let failure hold you back. I lost 2 races, and then I won 9 consecutive races. We just lost to Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. I think she lost 4. Picked herself up and had an amazing political career. You can't let a first loss stop you. But the other thing is, it is never a mistake to learn something new. I'm 68 years old. I graduated from college in 1978, and I went into the oil industry because it was 80% of the Houston economy. I mean, that's where you went to work. And I worked for the only woman manager in a Fortune 500 oil company, and their HR or information services. Information services is a fancy name for the file room. So I was in the file room filing things, and one day she looked around the file room and said, the company is thinking about buying a desktop computer. There were no desktop computers in industry yet, and they were just writing software. And she didn't say a desktop computer. We have this new machine, and it has some software that the company's interested in, and I need a volunteer. And my hands shot up so fast, mostly because I was just bored in the file room. But I spent a week learning. It was the clunky Apple computer that you put a big floppy disk into. And I learned this specialized software package for the oil and gas industry. And I came back and I demonstrated it to the CEO and the bigwigs in the company. And they said, this is great. We'd like to buy a computer and this software package, and would you like a job? And I spent the next 20 years accidentally riding the tech wave in the oil and gas industry. So every time a new specialized package would come out or a big upgrade in computer technology would come out, I went and figured out a way, either the company send me or I would send myself to learn this new skill and constantly, and I have an anthropology degree, but I spent 20 years in a highly technical position, and I was basically the IT department at Mossbacher Energy Company with my one little computer, and at the end of the time I was doing very complicated reservoir mapping and project economics for international projects, because I was willing to first take a chance and learn something new, but then just keep investing in myself. And that's important for anyone who wants to succeed, but particularly for women.
Sounds like you're about to answer the next question I have for all you guys. And what's the secret sauce? What's that ingredient that, if you had to share with ladies out there today, is it waking up early to get it done? Is it not sleeping at night? What's the secret sauce to getting it done?
I have to sleep. I don't know.
There you go.
Never quitting.
Never quitting.
Never quitting.
Never quitting.
Yep. I think there's so many days, and I'm sure you guys can relate, that you just want to quit because it's so hard, or something didn't go the way that you wanted it to, or you were talked to ugly or treated ugly, or you're having to fight still city ordinances which exclude women, or you're having to, keep showing up and doing the work. And I think the key is that you realize there are so many other people that are depending on you to succeed, because we need more women definitely that are willing to put in the work to be successful, as an example that it is possible. And so you can't quit. It's just not even an option. And I think that's the difference between winning and not. It's just, you're going to have hard days, and it's so critical to keep showing up for yourself, but also understanding that it's much bigger than yourself.
I think it's important as well to try to form community and get together with other women to press forward to, increase opportunities for everybody. Part of Anissa's success, going back to Whitmire, the Women's Political Caucus was a big thing in her being able to get where she was going. That was a bunch of women putting up small amounts of cash, because they didn't have large amounts of cash, but a bunch of women putting up small amounts of cash and being willing to go out there and knock doors and do whatever it took. And I feel like I ride on the shoulders of other women, but we all ride on the shoulders of other women.
Yes.
Do you all feel like we've come a long way?
Of course we've come a long way.
How much further do we need to go?
We have a long way to go.
We still have a long way to go. So when you say that, though, what do you mean by that? What kind of work still needs to be done?
When you are marking milestones, you have not reached the end of the journey. You have us here as people who've marked milestones, and we are still counting the number of women contractors and women mayors and women engineers, and when it becomes not something of note.
How do we get there? Will we get there? Are we going to see it? or are we going to see it? Will our grandchildren see it?
I'm going to die
you think?
trying.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
to just keep fighting.
I don't know whether we will get to see it, but that's not the point. You still go for it, whether you're going to
Yes.
get to see it or not. I mean, Susan B. Anthony died without having the right to vote, okay? As did many other women who pressed for us to have the right to vote. So whether we individually get to see it or not, we are taking a step forward every day in order to get there. I believe very firmly that you don't just talk the talk, you have to walk the walk, you have to wake up every day and move forward.
What are some of the steps women can take? How do they move forward?
I was going to say, finding the community, finding other strong leaders.
What kind of organizations are out there for young ladies where they could start doing that now? They don't know where to go. Some people might be watching this and say, hey, I'm just a young woman in my 20s and 30s. How do I pick up that phone? Which organizations? If I'm on social media, where can I go click and find young women who are in STEM or who want to make a difference and be a part of an organization that are helping to break barriers for women?
In my particular industry, it's NAWIC, which is the National Association of Women in Construction, and we find a lot of community there. But I think it is finding what your passion is, where you're trying to go, and then figuring out, because there is a lot of nonprofits and support groups for women, particularly in whatever it is that they're desiring, whether that be engineering or politics. And so I do think that it is building community and then sharing what your desires are. I think sometimes we feel afraid of speaking of where it is that we're trying to go. And I think sharing that, you'd be surprised how many people would be in support of that. I know I was. People used to look at me crazy when I said I wanted to build one of the largest Latino-owned general contracting companies. But, I found a lot of support and opportunities even that I wasn't even expecting, just because I was proud to own that. I think community for sure is important.
What about those opportunities and scholarships for women? A lot of people say, ladies, if you're going into STEM, you're going to be first considered for scholarships and opportunities. Is that the reality?
Well, not this week.
Stay tuned, right?
Not this week at all. You're going to have to work harder because these days, there's this ongoing attack, this demonization of DEI programs, and the sort of the assumption that if you were a woman and you're somewhere, you must have gotten there, you must be a DEI hire. Well, those women probably put in more work, probably smarter, worked harder, and went through more barriers to get where they are. They're probably overqualified rather than underqualified. But we're seeing women pulled from places because they're breaking through right now. But that just means that we have to get up and work harder. We also need to talk to young women, every opportunity we have, to let them know that there are more opportunities than they're aware of. There's a lot of girls out there that they've never laid eyes on a woman engineer or a woman contractor or a woman mayor, and because they've never seen it, they think they can't be it. So showing up wherever is really important.
How do you ladies show up?
Me with the hot pink hard hat, and I own it. I used to not own my femininity. Back in the day, I was afraid of wearing makeup and being, myself almost. So I think, be authentic, be who you are.
But take advantage. I speak at every panel opportunity like this. I speak to young women. I don't want to be flooded with invitations, but if someone can find me, I will meet with them. I'll have coffee with them. I try to mentor young women as I can. I'm involved in the Women's Campaign School at the LBJ School in Austin. I am, encouraging more and more women to get into politics. Whether it's construction or STEM or politics or any career, you you can have a successful and wonderful career, but what you want to be is in the room where the final decisions are made. Mm-hmm. And we should never want to stop short of that, where you want to be the decider at the end. And that's the only way that things really, really change. And I just think that, women who are, as Poppy said earlier, you want to extend the hand to pull other people up with you, but some of it's just showing up. And actually, a lot of the way the world works is it goes to people who just show up.
Even if you're tired, you show up. No matter what, you show up.
How do you show up, Poppy? Tell us.
Well, I mean, I'm on social media.
Okay.
Not as much as I'd like to be, because I'm still working. I'm 81 and I'm still down at the courthouse representing criminal defendants these days. But I'm out registering voters whenever I can. And, I carry my voter registration stuff with me. And when I check out at Office Depot or wherever, I may ask that person if they're registered to vote, okay? I mean, you just take opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities to talk to people. You can talk to people in the grocery store line.
You have 3 generations of women here, too, and we're all still doing it.
Yes.
Do you believe that the younger generation is listening? And your conversations with them, Raquel,
I
the
have
millennials,
yeah,
Gen Z, are they listening?
I have a 6-year-old daughter, and it's very important for me to raise her to believe that anything is possible, and I do think like Gen Z is listening. I think that we understand the intentionality of how we show up, but also the purpose of why we're showing up is really important. And not being afraid to vocalize your opinion is so critical for fear of being judged, because so long we have showed up and spoken and then got shot down because maybe we're too emotional because we're a woman, or maybe maybe she's just having, I don't know how many times I've heard this on the site, maybe it's just her time of the month. And I think reframing how, and I think the younger generation is getting it. It's like, you know what, we're going to stop tolerating this, and we're going to stop treating each other in this manner, because there's bigger purpose. There's so much going on in the world, and we are not taking 100 steps backwards. And I think, the future is almost, right now we're in a time where it's so important for us to create that community so we stand together strong. But yeah, I am teaching my daughter every day, and she sees it through example. I might have to make that sacrifice to not be able to make that extra time with her for a tennis lesson, because I am showing up for other women to help them have a hand up. And I think that's important.
I have 4 adult children and 5 grandchildren and another one on the way. And I have been actually fairly astounded that my youngest daughter is 30, and they will not put up with stuff that I felt was necessary for me to deal with. They will push back and speak out, and I'm a little scared of my granddaughters already. how outspoken they are. Yeah, they're gonna be hell on wheels when they get a little. They're
Yes.
toddlers still. Yeah, they're gonna be.
Sounds like
hard
they've
to
been
manage.
listening.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they're listening, and I think they expect to be treated equally, which is good, because
Yes.
that's the step right before demanding it whenever you don't get it. So I'm hopeful.
Well, it sounds like you all are hopeful that something will come for women in the future, whether that be a voice. Maybe we don't accomplish everything we're after and the fight continues, but just being heard at this point, not being silenced, just hearing that voice and making sure it reaches beyond that line and that it's heard, right?
Yes.
Is there anything else you ladies would like to add to this discussion this evening?
I don't want to, I can't overemphasize the importance of making investments in yourself. I had the benefit of my mother was a college graduate. My grandmother, who was born in 1899, was a college graduate, and the expectation of me my whole life was I was going to get an education and I was going to be able to support myself. That not to depend on someone else to support me. So for all of our kids, that expectation is you need to be able to make a living for yourself, making a career, make a future for yourself. It's particularly important for women, but also the investments that you make in education, in your skill sets. Sometimes, again, I didn't know that going and taking a computer class would change my life, but it did. But any investment you make in sharpening your axe so that you can go out and chop down that next tree is worth it.
Yeah. And I'd like to add, like, I come from very humble beginnings, and so I didn't get like a private education. I went to multiple public schools, single mother, and so I think that it is changing the framework that anything is possible, and don't let the fact that, or let somebody tell you that just because you're a woman that you cannot be someone. Mm-hmm. And it is so important right now in the society for people to stand up to be someone. And so I say, if you are on the cusp of thinking about doing something great, just go for it and don't fear failure, because you will fail, but that's also how you learn. So do it. If you're thinking about doing it, get out there and do it. Try.
I have concerns. My biggest concern about the upcoming generation really has to do with social media and the over-involvement in their phone. I think that people are losing some ability to really focus. And part of what you need to be able to get ahead, especially if you're making breakthroughs into areas where historically you're not welcome, is you have to have focus. You have to be able to focus like a laser beam. And that means you have to learn how to put the phone down and stop scrolling.
Yeah, you can't live your life online, for sure.
No.
Yeah, that's definitely changing and evolving everything.
All right. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. Such an inspiration, even to me. Thank you so much for being here to share your stories, your experiences. And we are going to wrap up this evening, but this will be playing on KHOU 11 Plus and all of our online platforms so that you can continue to join in and watch as you'd like. We thank you so much for joining us this evening on KHOU 11 Plus. We hope that you have a wonderful night. Goodbye.